Welcome everyone to the next Gen 4 International Forum webinar presentation. This morning's presentation on ESFR SMART, a European sodium fast reactor concept, including the European feedback experience and the new safety commitments following the Fukushima accident, will be presented by Mr. Joel Guides. Doing today's introduction is Dr. Patricia Pavier. Dr. Pavier is the group leader of the Radiological Materials Group at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And she is the National Technical Director of the Molten Salt Reactor Program on behalf of the U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Nuclear Energy. She's currently the chair of the Gen 4 International Forum Education and Training Working Group. I give the floor to you, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Bertha. Good morning and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have Mr. Joel Guides with us today. He graduated in 1973 from l'École Centrale de Paris, and his career focused on the field of nuclear reactors in France and in Europe. After working for Superphénix and then for Phénix as head of test, he led the thermohydraulic laboratory in the CES Center of Cadarache. In 1993, he became head of the Osiris reactor at Saclay near Paris, and 5 years later, in 1997, he was seconded to the European Commission in Petten, the Netherlands, where he took responsibility for the European Commission reactor, the high flux reactor. From 2002 to the end of 2007, he was director of the Phénix nuclear power plant in the CES Center of Marcoule. He continued until 2009 as director of industrial nuclear support at Saclay. His first European experience was followed by a second one in 2010, where he became nuclear representative at the French embassy in Berlin. In 2011, he returned to Saclay in the director of the CEA Nuclear Energy Division as an international expert. He wrote 2 books that have been published and translated and published in English. The first one on the experience feedback from the 35 years of operation of the reactor Phénix, and the second one on the technical and scientific achievements of Superphénix. He served on several committees. He retired in March 2020 while remaining a scientific advisor to the CEA, working on the ESFR Smart European project and writing a new book entitled Fast Reactor, a Solution to Avoid Global Warming. So without any further ado, I'm really honored and very happy to give you the floor, Joel. Again, thank you for volunteering to present this webinar, which is recorded and will be archived on the GIF website. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Patricia. This slide is only to show the 2 books that were made on the experience, on the learning experience on the Phénix and Superphénix reactor, and all the basis of ESFR SMART is based on this experience. And as I said in the title, ESFR SMART is a view of the final learning experience of European fast reactors. Next slide, please. So, the summary of the presentation of today, we have first some words on the ESFR SMART history to explain that the design of ESFR SMART is based on the feedback experience of European sodium fast reactor. The second point is the methodology we used to increase the safety. The aim of the project was to increase the safety and to reach the new ask in safety after Fukushima. The 3 points is the core design. The 4 points is the containment and the primary circuit design. After the 5 points is the point on the decade removal. That is special for ESFR SMART. The 6 points are the secondary loops. 7 points on the final layout of the plant. In the point 8, we make together the status of all the simplifications and the improvements of the design. In the point 9, we have status of all the passive systems that are included in the design of SFR Smart. In the point 10, the necessary research and development to reach the benefits of the SFR Smart design. And the point 11 are the conclusion. Next slide, please. We have to remain together the SFR Smart history. In 1988, while the European Superphénix reactor was in operation, a new European sodium fast reactor EFR project with a SACTI higher power of 1,500 electrical megawatt was launched in collaboration between France, Italy, Germany, and UK. This project was stopped by the shutdown of Superphénix and was closed by a final file, very interesting to read, that summarizes all the options selected. On this basis, a project called CPE-SFR, Collaborative Project on SFR, was initiated a few years later to groom the EFR options and to integrate the new technical developments. It is on this new basis that a project called SFR Smart started at the end of 2017, mainly with the objective to integrate all the new safety rules resulting primarily from the Fukushima accident. This project tried to include all the long European experience on sodium fast reactor, not only from Phénix to Superphénix, but also from project studies such as European fast reactor or ASTRID. Next slide, please. So this type of project is a working horse or a concept car, I don't know. The two terms are used. In the Anglo-Saxon world, sometimes we call a working horse. Its role is to introduce, outside of any constructive planning, new ideas for the future, which can be valuable skills for the research and development. Though we are not in an industrial project, and we have no construction schedule, so we can easily introduce innovative ideas, even if their lower technological level will require research and development in the future. So, nevertheless, for these new ideas, research and first calculations have been performed to check the general feasibility and to see the absence of major impossibilities. In conclusion, we will see the status of the necessary research and development to provide to use these new ideas. Next slide, please. What methodology we use to reach the new safety requirements post-Fukushima? First, we try to avoid dedicated system for incidents because simple is safe. I have been the director of 3 reactors, and I know that we need to have simple operation on the plant to be safe. We use all the advantage of sodium, especially for the natural convection. Sodium is a very good fluid to assure natural convection. We use the feedback experience of reactors and of projects as the EFR ASTRID. We use a practical elimination methodology to try as far as possible to suppress by the design a lot of non-possible incidents. All the incidents, as we know, the feedback experience of reactor, we have eliminated this incident well known by practical elimination in the design. And we have a final verification of accordance of the final design to the new safety rules post-Fukushima that has been made and provided by a dedicated task. Next slide, please. On the feedback experience of reactor, you have to remind that the European fast reactor project was initiated during the end of Superphénix 1 operation. Superphénix was the biggest sodium fast reactor even built and operated in the world. And there was a lot of experience, industrial experience of Superphénix. And we see that in the European fast reactor design, several new options appeared, and the options are very interesting because the propositions were made on the basis of the huge and unique experience. We will see mainly in the ECFR Smart design the proposition of massive metallic roof. That was a proposition of people that has worked on Superphénix. The primary pumps are belted, non-oscillative primary pumps. And we'll see the proposition of modular steam generators on Superphénix that was a compact steam generators and massive steam generators. And there was a lot of problem with the massive type of massive steam generators. And the people proposed this modular steam. We will see the advantage of the modular steam generators. Next slide, please. So I will come back on the formulation simple is safe. So we try to propose a design of reactor very simple because simple is safe. So rather than handling device to improve safety, we simplify the reactor design to promote passive and intrinsic safety with a quick grace period for the operator. We will resume in the conclusion how we simplify the design, suppression of the dome, of the safety vessel, of the DRHRS system inside the primary vessel, etc. And how we increase the passive system. We'll see that we have passive control rods, we have passive decay removal, passive circulation with thermal pumps. And the reactor very simple to operate. Next slide, please. We arrive at the following point, the point 3 of the core design, the void effect. We know that we have in the sodium phase reactor the problem of void effect. And the core design of ECFR Smart is mainly issued of the Astrid project, the French project Astrid works to minimize the void effect. A lot of various dispositions were taken as increase the diameter of pins, to have a plenum above the core, to mix fertile and fissile inside the core, etc. That allow to employ the global almost zero void effect. That is very important in terms of safety and in terms of severe accident. We see also that the energy release is very low. Then we have add in the core passive control rods. We have two games of various passive, two games of control, active control rods, but we have a third game of 12 control rods that stop the reactor with a physical parameter reached. For example, if the temperature of sodium is more than 600 degrees, they fall without operation on any control command order. It's totally passive control rods. They can stop the reactor if there is a problem. And we have also in the core the tubes for corium discharge. We have made a lot of work to increase the mitigation of incident. And for the corium, in case of severe accident and of corium formation, we have several tubes in the core that arrive above the core catcher. In case of severe accident with the core melting, they should conduct the corium to this core catcher. We'll see that on the next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the slide shows the artistic view of the preferential ways for the melting core. You see we have in the core a lot of tubes that will melt. These tubes are filled in sodium. When they melt, the corium will arrive through these tubes above the core catcher. We will come back later on the geometry of the core catcher. But we see that dispositions were taken at the beginning for the mitigation of the severe accident. Thanks, please. Always on the core design, we have in this core 24 active control rods responding to the usual safety criteria, especially for diversification with two different types of control rod. As for the other sodium phase reactor, the pads on the fuel assembly are in contact when the power of the reactor begins to increase, though compaction of the core is not possible when the reactor is in operation. And to verify that there is no modification of the global core geometry during the operating cycle, some ultrasonic measurement can be provided to survey the geometry of the core. Thanks. Next slide, please. That is a view of the ECFR Smart Core. We see the inner zone. We see the controller assembly, the corium discharge path. The corium discharge path you see there with the red point. That is the controller discharge path. We have the shielding of the subassembly. We have the internal spent fuel storage in the external part. We have the fissile fuel mixed with the fertile blanket. And we have the fission gas plenum that is above. And we have the sodium plenum. And we have the shielding absorber. So we see the conception of the core is issued mainly of the conception of the asteroid core. Thanks. Next slide, please. Now, after the core of the reactor, we arrive to the containment and to the primary circuit. The design of the primary circuit is mainly characterized by following improvements. We suppressed the safety vessel. We suppressed the possibility of primary sodium leaks that allows the suppression of the dome or the polar table. The dome was on Superphénix reactor, and the polar table was on the Astrid project. And so in ECFR Smart, we try to suppress this very expensive fact. After we have suppressed the dedicated circuit for decay removal inside the primary circuit, other circuits for the decay removal are outside of the primary circuits, and you have a new core catcher for better mitigation of severe accident. All that are the 4 main points that characterize the ECFR Smart primary circuits. The first point is the safety vessel. We know that safety vessel functions. All the existing sodium fast reactor built or operated have a safety vessel around the main reactor vessel. The function of the safety vessel is to contain the primary sodium in case of the main vessel leakage, to avoid lowering the primary sodium free level below the exchanger inlet window, which will have the effect of interrupt the cooling of the core by natural convection. So if you have a leak on the safety vessel, we are in an accidental situation and the reactor will never start again. And the unloading of the core is necessary. But this unloading will take at least 1 year because it is necessary to wait until the decrease of assembly residual power. So the other function of safety vessel during the accidental situation is to maintain the sodium without leakage in the pit during more than 1 year. We need to make a demonstration that it's possible to have this functional. Here we have a view of the safety vessel of Superphénix. You see that it's a big component, 21 meters of diameter. And in the pit inside, you see the cooling system around the safety vessel on the pit. Next slide, please. Why suppress the safety vessel? A number of measures have been taken to prevent leakage of the safety vessel. We have a slight overpressure between the 2 vessels to detect a possible initial leak during the reactor operation. And we have chosen different materials between safety vessel and main vessel to avoid a common failure mode on corrosion. But the scenario of main vessel leakage are diverse. It can be corrosion leakage, can be corrosion to a leakage after a severe accident with a big mechanical energy release. And the uncertainties in the temperature and leakage rates make it difficult to demonstrate the safety vessel mechanical strength against the corresponding thermal shocks. For example, if you have a big leak in one part of the mine vessel, we can have deformation thermal shocks, strange thermal shock on the safety vessel, and you can lose the safety vessel. The demonstration is difficult to do because we don't know the scenario of the incident. The evolution of the safety standards leads us to look at other options, where its function could be directly taken over by the pit of the reactor. If the pit can assure the withstanding of the sodium leak and assure the long-term mitigation, if we can do that, in this case, all the functions of the safety vessel can be taken by the pit of the reactor, and in this case, we can suppress the safety vessel. Next slide, please. What are the advantages to suppress the safety vessel? So if we arrive to have a pit designed to take the safety vessel function, and we can, in this case, suppress the safety vessel, and so we can maintain the function to have a volume between safety and mine vessel that is the same, that volume between the pit and the mine vessel. The design presents several advantages. The heat screen from the safety vessel is suppressed, and the power removal through the reactor pits is facilitated. And so we'll see that it's interesting to increase the decay heat removal possibilities by the pit circuits. We have response to the question from the safety authority relating to a double leak of the two vessels. The mine vessel in this inspection remains still possible as before, and the final structure is better adapted to the mitigation functions because this pit design is now able to support any sodium leaks at the beginning of the accident and after several months later. Thanks. Next slide. So we have made a pit design proposition. A mixed concrete metal structure with a water cooling system inside the concrete supports the 6 metal slab to which the reactor vessel is attached. Together with the reactor roof, it provides a sealed containment which must keep its integrity in all the cases of normal and accidental operation. Above the bottom of the concrete metal structures, blocks of insulating materials, non-reactive with sodium, are installed in the lower part. Alumina is selected as reference material for these insulation blocks. A metallic liner is placed on the surface on these insulation blocks. The gap between the reactor vessel and the liner is small enough to avoid decrease of the primary sodium free level in case of leakage. An oil cooling system is installed on the liner in front of the mine vessel. This oil system is compatible with sodium. There is no hydrogen in case of reaction oil sodium, and this oil can operate at very high temperatures. Finally, a special concrete with aluminous concrete, which could withstand without significant chemical reaction with sodium. We can withstand the leakage on the liner, could be used between the liner and the external structures. Next slide, please. In the following slide, we have a view of the pit. So you see the air in red with the red. You can see the external part in concrete with the possibility to have this concrete under 70 degrees all time. Here we have the slab, the slab with the high thickness. Here we have the mine vessel, and in front of the mine vessel we have the liner that is air, the aluminous concrete behind the liner, some insulation between liner and aluminous concrete, and we have in the lower part the alumina blocks to support the liner, and anti-seismic device under the primary vessel that we can see there. You see the diameter. We have a diameter that is In Superphénix, it was more than 21 meters, and we arrived to 20 meters. Next slide, please. So we have two independent active cooling systems. The oil cooling system is close to the liner. The oil is under forced convection and can remove the heat transferred by radiation for the reactor vessel. We use for this oil system an example of commercial oil as terminal SP can be used in normal operation and can operate at 315 degrees, so to a very high temperature. And in case of accident and of sodium with this oil will not produce hydrogen. After we have a second cooling system, that's a little water cooling system inside the concrete in the external part. And this system can maintain the concrete temperature under 70 degrees in all the possible situations, even if the oil system is lost. Both systems are working during normal operation to maintain the concrete temperature at low temperature. And in case of the reactor vessel leak and the loss of the oil system, the water system is able to alone to remove the decay generated by the core and to maintain alone the concrete below 70 degrees. Next slide, please. That is a view of the oil system inside, that is on the liner. There are several independent oil circuits on the liner able to take the residual power. Next slide, please. So we have made preliminary thermal calculation of the systems. The calculation was provided by GRC for the following three main scenarios. First scenario is normal operation. The main vessel is about 400 degrees. And we see that the operation of the oil cooling system is sufficient to maintain correct thermal condition in the pit. The scenario 2 was the operation in exceptional decay removal regime. We are already in accidental case, in exceptional situation of category 3 and 4. And the reactor vessel, in this accidental case, can reach temperature of 650 degrees. And you see that the two cooling systems can maintain the concrete temperature at below 70 degrees without problem. And the scenario 3 is the operation in accident situation of sodium leakage. In this situation, we even don't try to demonstrate that the oil system can operate. We say that we lose the oil system, and we demonstrate that the operation of the water cooling system alone is sufficient to maintain the concrete temperature below 70 degrees. Next slide, please. This slide is a view of the modelization that has been provided for the calculation. These calculations have been presented in ECAP 2019. A paper is available on the subject. Next slide, please. So the calculation results show that a nominal power about 3 megawatts are extracted by the oil circuit to maintain the oil at 200 degrees. And the situation is, even if the water circuit is not operating, the temperature of the concrete is under 70 degrees. Scenario 2, in exceptional regime of decay removal, with the main vessel at 650 degrees during a short time, we can extract a power of about 15 megawatts. The liner remains at about 200 degrees, and the concrete remains easily under 70 degrees. In scenario 3, in case of sodium leakage after a big accident, we don't even try to demonstrate that the whole circuit was always in operation, but only with the water circuit it's easy to maintain the concrete at a good temperature. This is all the case, we can maintain the temperature of the concrete under 70 degrees. Next slide, please. The interest of the suppression of the safety vessel is also that the decayed removal capabilities of the oil cooling system is bigger than before because the heat screen of the safety vessel has been suppressed. And so we have the health calculation that show the possibility to extract 3 megawatt at nominal power and 50 megawatt in accidental situation without problem with this system that is more efficient. Next slide, please. Conclusion of the safety vessel suppression. So we arrived to an innovative design of the pit that allows to suppress the safety vessel. The safety vessel is a component, very expensive component, and very, at an industrial level, it was a very difficult component. It's also a big advantage in terms of industrial realization. We have two active forced convection cooling system, an oil cooling system close to the metallic liner, and the water system inside the concrete structure. And the preliminary thermal calculation show that the systems are very efficient, enable in all the scenarios to maintain the concrete below 70 degrees. The proposed reactor pit design has several advantages: elimination of safety vessel, better efficiency of the decayed removal by the reactor pit cooling systems, and safer configuration in case of accidental or mitigation situation. Thanks. If you want to know more on this pit organization and calculation, the results have been presented in the ICAP 2019 symposium. So we can read this paper that explain in detail the calculation and the geometry disposition. And they are also presented in the NERSC paper, a publication of that will be made this year. And you have two papers that explain more in detail this pit organization and this first pre-calculation. Thanks. The second innovation in the primary sodium confinement was the massive metallic roof. Supersonic experience feedback leads to recommend hot slabs at the bottom part to minimize aerosol deposit and with no water cooling inside, because in Supersonic there was water cooling inside the roof. This last point is also part of the demonstration of practical elimination of sodium-water reaction on the primary side. Though the FR6 for the European fast reactor, the people that were the conceptor of Superphénix proposed a 6 slab that presents many advantages. Simplicity of operations. The 6 slab, you have nothing to do for the operator. There is no circulation of air or of water inside to operate. It gives a good neutron protection. It gives a mechanical oversizing in the event of severe accident because it's very huge, massive metallic roof. And we have a limitation of thermal flow because the thermal flow are by conduction, and the conduction is not efficient. And so we have a limitation of the thermal flow that is controlled by the conduction. The thickness will be defined by the industrial manufacturing contingency, but should be about 80 centimeters. In the upper part, we can add eventually a heat insulator to limit the heat flow to be evacuated to a nominal condition, but this heat flow should be evacuated by natural convection. Thanks, please. We took a lot of other disposition in the design of the plant to avoid any primary sodium leaks during severe accidents. So the disposition are the following. All the components, heat exchanger and pumps are firmly bottled and welded in the upper part to avoid any risk of leak. You have the rotating plugs, they have protective seals that are solidified during the operation, so no leak is possible. You have no circulation of sodium, primary sodium, outside the vessel. The cold traps are integrated in the primary circuit. And we have low argon pressure to avoid any sodium fountain effect. All these measures do enable to prevent any primary sodium leakage outside the roof, and so any overpressure possibility due to primary sodium fires after a severe accident. I forgot one of the dispositions, we'll see later, that there are no DHX systems there is no DHX system inside the primary vessel, and so there is no possibility of sodium leaks at this level also. So, and as there is no possibility of primary sodium leaks, even in case of severe accident, we can suppress the expansive and complex system as a dome that was on Super Phoenix, on the Polar Table that was on a street project. The systems are complex, they generate high cost, and later they generate difficulties for the operation of the plant, and so it's not good for the safety. Thanks. Next slide, please. That is a view of the Super Phoenix dome that was 22 meters of diameter. It's a big piece. It's very expensive, very complicated. And after doing operation of the plant, then when you have to make handling, you have to make a lot of work that is not in the sense of the safety, because in the sense of simplicity. Thanks. Let's regarde. So we have suppressed another point of our proposition. We have suppressed the decayed removal system inside the primary vessel. The decayed removal is assured by system in the secondary loops. In Super Phoenix, there was independent system DHX located in the primary circuit, and it was also in the CP-ESFR. We have suppressed the systems inside the primary circuits, so we have no slab penetrations required. It gives a gain on the main vessel diameter. In thermohydraulic, we have a cold column that is maintained in the intermediate heat exchanger, which is a guarantee of a good natural convection in the primary circuit. It was not the case with DHX, because with DHX, you have very complicated transient situations before to cool the core of the reactor. The circuit uses the already existing purification circuit of the corresponding secondary loop. So we minimize the number of sodium circuits. We have not new sodium circuit to manage by the operator. The DHX of Super Phoenix was a sodium circuit to manage with purification system and draining system, and all that had a complexity for the operator. We have less risk of sodium leak out of the primary vessel because we have no more penetration inside the primary vessel. And our systems that are out of the primary vessel are more resilient in case of energy release in the core during a severe accident. Thanks. Last but not the least, we have in the in-vessel core catcher that was installed inside the reactor. The mitigation of a severe accident with a core meltdown is achieved by means of a core catcher located at the bottom of the vessel under the core support plates that we called also a strong back. The guide tubes coming from the core, you have already seen this design before, emerge above this core catcher so as to channel the mottled corium on the core catcher. The tubes arrive above conical hats which disperse the corium and protect the core catcher. We use the molybdenum as material that can prevent the melting of the core capture structures and facilitate the heat removal by conduction, very good conduction. The use of hafnium-type poisons in the core capture structures enables to avoid any recriticality of the corium. The core capture volume has been dimensioned for the whole fissile core meltdown and for this cooling by natural convection sodium. Next slide, please. The choice of the core capture material, by we chose as for the Russian fast reactor BN 800, we choose the molybdenum because it has a good resistance to corium ablation, it has a good chemical compatibility with sodium, it has a very high melting point above 2000 degrees. It's a material available, well done and affordable. It has a very good conduction efficient that is important for the natural convection and the decay heat removal by natural convection. It has an excellent mechanical resistance against thermal shock. Sounds, please. That is a view of the core capture. There you see the conical hats above the chimney, and the tubes arrive above that conical hats. All the core is in molybdenum, and natural convection is possible inside for the evacuation of the residual power by the sodium around this core capture. We can say also that tests have been made in the kit in Germany on the natural convection around this core capture. Thanks, please. Here we see the core capture, this in green, that is under the core that's there. And here we can see the tubes driving the melting core inside the core capture. You see that we have a system that is well dimensioned for the severe accident. Thanks, please. That is a drawing of the core capture. We have to say that all the drawing of the ECFA Smart project have been made in PSC during the project, and all the drawings are available for further work on the subject. In the drawing, we see again the chimney. We see the possibility of natural convections around the core capture, and inside there's chimneys. Thanks, please. Though we have seen the 4 main improvements of the primary vessel, and we arrive at this final view of the primary vessel. You see the containment that is very strong containment, concrete, that is always at low temperature. We have the slab, metallic slab with a high thickness, and we can support any severe accident with this containment. There is no more dome or polar table above this containment. There is no possibility of sodium leaks, and all the decay heat removal is made at external level by this heat exchanger that allows to have a good natural circulation inside the reactor and a good cooling of the core in natural convection in all the situations. The components are welded on the upper part to avoid any leakage. If we have to take out the component for maintenance, we can cut the weld and you can extract the component without difficulties. The purification are also inside the primary vessel. There is no primary sodium going out of the plant or out of the primary vessel. Thanks. We will arrive now to the next chapter, the decay heat removal systems. The reactor has 3 decay heat removal systems, the HRS, and we have no more DH6 system inside the primary circuit. The 3 DHS systems are the 6 secondary loops able to evacuate in active or passive way by air cooling, the DHRS2, We have 2 active circuits in oil and water in the pit. We have already spoken on these circuits. And you have 6 passive systems, the RHS1, able to remove power even if the secondary loop is drained and natural convection by air cooling. Next slide, please. So we begin by the DRHS2. There are the secondary circuits. They are the normal power removal circuits. And they use, the decay removal is very useful since they are allocating in the intermediate exchanger a cold column that is essential for the establishment of a good natural convection with the primary, in the primary circuit with the core of the reactor. The design of the secondary loops have been optimized to enable good power removal by air in natural convection. In the extreme situation, that is the Fukushima situation, when both will lose the cooling water and the electrical power supply, the secondary loops are able to make by natural convection the power removal. And one thermal pump is installed to increase natural convection circulation flow rates. We will come back later on the thermal pumps. They are passive pumps, we don't need any electricity supply. The CPE-CFR option and the EFR option for the steam generators was modular, with 6 modules per loop. Though the 6 modules allow to have a relative large exchange surface, and you have opportunities to cool these modules by natural convection with air. We open hatch in the casing, as on the Phoenix reactor, and the air circulation around the modules allow to cool by natural convection the reactor. Next slide, please. We have 6 loops. All calculations are made with the principle that one loop is out of order. Though we have made a calculation that is, and the calculation have shown that in normal operation, one loop is sufficient to assure the decay removal. If we lose water in the steam generators, the circulation of secondary sodium with the open casings is hooked to assure the decay removal by natural convection. If we lose also the electricity supply, Fukushima situation, low sodium circulation, low speed, is able to assure alone the decay removal. And if we stop totally the secondary pumps, natural convection in the loop is able with the HRS3 to assure all the decay removal without the help of the HRS1. After several hours, the HRS2 is able alone without the HRS3 to assure the decay removal. So we see that the system is very efficient in natural convection. Next slide, please. That is a view of the secondary loop at the HRS2. We see the heat exchanger is there. That is the HRS1 that we will speak after on this the HRS1. The HRS2, we see that the sodium is going in the 6 modules and come back. Yeah. And so if you open the straps in this part and in the upper part, there is natural convection of the air through the casing. And as on the Phoenix reactor, you cool easily the reactor by natural convection. Next slide, please. So the HRS3, we have already spoken of these 2 cooling active circuits located in the reactor pit and able to maintain the entire pit at the temperatures below 70 degrees. We have suppressed the safety vessel that makes the device more efficient than before. The circuits are redundant, 3 or more, and can assure when the primary vessel is at 650 degrees, a power extraction of about 15 megawatt. They are active circuits, not passive circuits. And after 3 days, the circuit can assure alone the decay removal of the plant without the secondary loops. Thanks, please. And we arrive at the last system, the HRS1. There are cooling circuits with sodium air heat exchanger connected to the intermediate heat exchanger and out of the primary vessel. They operate in natural convection in air and natural convection in sodium. There is a thermal pump on the circuit to increase the capabilities and to help for the starting of the operation. The circuits remain active even if the loop is drained. In case of accident, the circuits are out of primary vessel and though protected, mechanically protected, and without problems of mechanical release. What are the advantages? There are several advantages in comparison of the independent system DHX that were located in the primary circuit in Superphénix or in CPE-CFR. We have no slab penetration, so we have a gain of vessel diameter. We have a cold column that is maintained in the intermediate heat exchanger, and so natural convection with the core is operating very well, very quickly. The circuits use already existing purification circuit of the secondary loop. So we don't add new loops of sodium. We use the loop of secondary loops. And we have less risk of sodium leak out of the primary vessel because we are not in the primary vessel. And we are more resilient in case of energy release in the core. Thanks. Here we have a view of the system that is very simple. We have the here, we have the heat exchanger that you can see with the red bullet, and we have the liaison. We have the heat exchanger. In the drawings of Observe Smart, we took the heat exchanger of Superphénix 1. It was exactly what we needed. Then we have all the calculation, all the tests on the heat exchanger that exist. And here we have a big chimney, and this chimney is only to increase the natural convection of the air that arrive cooled air and come back air. And we have a good, with the chimney, we have a good natural convection operation. The sodium is cooled and come back air, and the difference in density between the hot sodium and the cold sodium allow to the system to operate without any mechanical pumps. We will see that we add thermal pumps on the circuit to increase the flow rate, but the circuit is operating totally passively. When we need this circuit, we are only to open the hatch, to open the hatch of the chimney. The cooling begins to operate, and the circuit is operating by natural convection. Thanks. Let's please. So we have made a lot of calculation of the DHRS capabilities to validate the proposition. And so we have the calculation show that the secondary loops and the pit hole circuits can assure the decayed removal, and after 3 days can assure alone the decayed removal. The secondary loops can assure in natural convection more than 20 megawatt. Is able together with the HRS3 to assure the decayed removal alone. With the low speed of secondary pumps, the HRS2 is able to assure alone the decayed removal. And even if the circuit have lost, if all the circuits are lost, the DHRS1 is able to assure alone the function without need of water and without need of electricity. The DHRS1 are 6 independent systems, totally passive, using air that is always available. They are able together to assure 100% of the decayed removal. In fact, the calculations were made with 5 independent systems and 1 that was out of order. Thanks. Next slide, please. So we have a global safety acceptance. The new rules after Fukushima is that the probability of a prolonged loss of residual power systems in SFR must be less than 10 -7. For this, is admitted of in simplified way that the system of evacuation of residual power must comprise two lines of strong defense, reliable and capable to assure lines of evacuation of residual power, and one line of weak defense. In our case, the first calculation made that it's possible to demonstrate that DRHS 1 and 2 could constitute a strong line of defense, and DRHS 3 the weak line of defense. And so the final design is in accordance with the new rules of safety after Fukushima. And the design show in the disposition with flexible pipes that is not the final disposition of the layout of the reactor, but this schema show the 6 casings of the secondary loops that are able by natural convection. If you open the gates by natural convection, they can sur the DHR. We have the 6 chimneys of the DHRS1 systems that are related to the heat exchanger, and the DHRS3 are inside the primary vessel or around the main vessel. And with the 3 systems, we are able, in other case, to have a very efficient evacuation of the decayed removal. Thanks. Next slide, please. If you want to know more, because a lot of calculations were made, particularly was EDF that made a lot of calculations with the Qatar with the Qatar computer code. Calculations were made by EDF on the subject to make the calculation of the natural convection in the air. We have a presentation in the ECAP 2018, ECAP 2019, ECAP 2021. And we have a paper in the ASM special issue 2000 of this year that explains all the calculation and all the results on the subject. Thanks. Next, please. So we arrive now to the secondary loops. We have seen the primary circuit. We have seen the DHRS system. Now we arrive to the improvements of the secondary loops. Though the secondary loops are designed to assure the decayed removal, but the big proposition for the secondary loops was to suppress the flexible pipes and to use straight pipes with bellows. Another proposition was to use thermal pumps. The secondary loops design increase the safety against water-sodium reactions because with the modules, these reactions are easier to detect and easier to manage with a modular steam generator. The sodium fires in case of leakage are also easier to detect in the new disposition and to manage with the straight pipe options, and we will see that later. Next slide, please. Why do we go to the straight pipes? Is due to the difficulties with the flexible pipes. The feedback from operating experience on Phoenix and Super Phoenix show a number of difficulties with the flexible pipes. First, the expansion of the pipe is important and difficult to manage because we need to manage a free expansion, and that is not easy. With the new safety rules on seismic conditions, the pipes fixation are not compatible with this expansion. If we are firmly bottled on the pipes, you cannot have a free expansion. And if you have a free expansion, it's not possible to have firmly bottled for the seismic conditions. The length of the pipe is increased because if you are flexible, you need a big length of the pipe, and that increases the number of welds and also the risk of sodium leaks. And if the pipes are moving, we cannot separate the insulation from the pipes because there are differences in expansion. And that complicates the leak detection with a lot of false alarms. In case of sodium leak, corrosion effects can occur between sodium and insulation and pipes. We have seen this type of corrosion on Phoenix. What are the advantages to have straight pipes? There's a lot of potential advantage. First, we reduce the length of piping. We go from 200 meters to 120 meters. And we reduce the sodium volume of secondary loop from 116 to 57. You see that's a huge reduction. We reduce the number of wells and reduce the risk of sodium leaks. We have easier operation of the plant and possibility of credible anti-seismic system. Because you can have a anti-seismic system very firmly bottled. We can reduce the distance between the fixed points and get significant savings on secondary buildings. And we can separate the insulation from the piping. And so it's simpler, it's safer, and it's very big advantage for the operator of the plant for the sodium leak detection. Though we have reduced the risk of pipe corrosion because the insulation is no more in contact with the pipes. And we have better possibilities of leak detection with an offset thermal insulation. Thanks. Next slide. Though we see we have strike pipes, though it's possible to have insulation with a gap between the insulation and the strike pipes. Though there is no false alarm when the reactor begins to operate because the dilatation of the strike pipes, there is a gap with the insulation, there is no contact. And it's also easier to detect a sodium leak because if you have a sodium leak, the sodium will fall at the lower part of the insulation where it's possible to detect. Next slide, please. Then we come back to the same view as before with the view of the secondary loop with the straight pipes, and you see now the bellows. You need to have bellows, air, or air, or air, or air. This bellow takes remaining dilatation on the pipes, but the dilatation is very reduced because you can use the materials with a low dilatation effect, and you can also have a length of the pipes that is very little length, 1 or 2 meters, and so these bellows have not a lot of dilatation to take into account. Thanks. Next slide, please. The bellows. With the straight pipes, it's possible to bring near the components and the fixed points. So we reduce the pipe length, and so we reduce a lot the dilatation. Some materials can be used with lower dilatation coefficient than 316. The remaining dilatation will be taken by the bellows. Some research and development is necessary for these bellows of diameter 850 mm in terms of dilatation capacity and time life. However, the use of bellows in sodium is not new. This bellow exists on many sodium wells, especially in Phoenix by Phoenix, and inside also the Phoenix exchanger. A bellow of large diameter, approximately 800 mm, was installed in Super Phoenix, in the internal part of the hot collector of the heat exchanger, and even on the steam generator module of the Server Smart, we need a bellow of large diameter to allow the relative dilatation between the external wall of the steam generator and the internal bundle. Though there is no problem, there is some research and development to do, but we know that this type of things exist and can be used. Another point, we have the thermal pumps on the secondary loops. It's a passive electromagnetic pumps. We choose the thermoelectricity generated by the difference of temperature between the hot sodium and the atmospheric air. You see, here we can see on the view, we have the chromel and alumel air. So there is a difference of temperature between, there is an electrical circuit that will exist here. And so we create some millivolt of, between the chromel and alumel, some millivolt of delta P, but the resistivity of sodium is very low, and you have a big electric current that will circulate here. And here we have a magnetic field that is created by permanent magnet. And so it's a passive pump. It gives about 20 millibar of pressure without order, without electricity. We have nothing to do. It's totally passive. Thanks. Next slide, please. So we have made some calculation. So they provide this passive flow. Here we see the calculation of the electric circulation. And so they can give a pressure of about 20 millibar in your case. That is useful to have better natural convection and to have a better circulation of sodium inside the DRHS1 and even in the DRHS2. If these pumps are not, if the research and development is not ended on this pump, we could replace by electromagnetic pumps with emergency electric current, but the cost will be higher and it's not passive. Thanks. Next slide, please. That's another view of the thermal pump. You see also the two permanent magnets that are here that give the magnetic field. And here you have alumel and chromel. In this case, other products can be used. That will give the electricity, the intensity of electricity inside. And so this type of pump can operate on a tube and give some pressure and some circulation of sodium without any order and without any things to do for the operator. It's a simple system, not expensive at all, in comparison of electromagnetic pumps with all the control command behind. Done. Next slide, please. Now we arrive to the final SFR Smart layout. Those secondary loops have a straight pipe. You have seen the advantage of straight pipes. And another advantage is the straight pipe allows circular disposition of the loops around the primary vessel. This disposition allows the reduction of the length of the pipes by a factor 2. It's a huge gain. The reduction of the secondary volume by factor 2, reduction of the related auxiliary system. All the systems, sodium storage and so are also reduced. We have a significant savings on the side of the secondary buildings, about 50% also, because their area is proportional to the square of the distance between reactor vessel and steam generator casing. With this position, the DRHS1 and casing are very near, and so it's possible to have the same chimney for the two components, not the same chimney for the two components. And we can also note that in order to reduce the cost, the layout of the building is made so that the handling building can serve for 2 reactors. Next slide, please. So we see here the circular disposition of the 6 loops around the primary vessel. You see that is very compact, and we see that the length of the pipes is very low, that allow to have a very few deattention, and the bellows are easy to manage. Here we see the secondary loops, and you see that the DRHS1 is very near from the casing, and so it's possible to have the same only one chimney for the DRHS1 and for the DRHS2. In comparison of the slide with the flexible pipe pumps, we have in this slide there was 12 chimneys, and here with 6 chimneys we are able, with only 6 chimneys, we are able to have this natural air convection inside the casing of the steam generator or inside the DRHS1. You see that we have a very compact disposition. Thanks. Next slide, please. Oh, we have comparison here on this slide. We have the comparison between the version of flexible pipes. So if you have flexible pipes, you need to have a length of the pipes. So you need to have 12 chimneys, and you are not compact at all. Here we have only 6 chimneys, and we are very compact in comparison of the flexible pipes. Thanks. Next slide, please. So we have a comparison of the secondary building between the two options. With the original design, with flexible pipes, we have a big secondary building that is necessary. And with the new design, with the straight pipes, we have very compact. Here we have the handling building. You have seen in the slide before that there was some place for the handling building. And here we have the turbine building coming from this part. You see that we have a lot of gain on the secondary building. Next slide, please. It's only to say that the disposition of straight pipes and circular disposition is not totally new. Even if we took that disposition for SFR Smart, it's also a disposition proposed in the future SFR project, Russian SFR project, BN 1200 project. They also chose straight pipes and circular disposition around the primary vessel. We are not alone in this new disposition. Next slide, please. So we arrive at this interesting slide with the final layout of the plant. We have a secondary building that is very compact around the primary vessel. We see three chimneys, the 3 others are in the other part. Here we have the handling building with its own chimney for the handling building. Here we have the turbine. And if we want to add another reactor, another reactor can be added here with the same handling building that this reactor, because one handling building is sufficient for 2 reactors, in fact. And you see that you have a compact layout, that is useful. To know more, you have these 2 papers, a paper for the meeting this year, FR22, on the SFR Smart secondary loop optimization. And we have also the papers of the ASME special issue of this year on the secondary loop optimization of the SFR as part of the SFR Smart project. The 2 papers will explain more in detail all the disposition with the straight pipe and all the results. So we arrive to the conclusions now. We have a status of the simplification and improvement of SFR Smart. So we have suppressed the safety vessel. The function were taken over by the reactor pit. We have suppressed the dome of the polar table, due to primary sodium containment improvement with a massive metallic roof and other disposition we have seen together. We have a good natural convection in the secondary side. We have optimized and simplified the HRS circuit. There is no more DHX system in the primary vessel, and there is no supplementary sodium circuits to manage. We have a gain of about 50% of the secondary loop with straight pipes. And we have a general layout gain with a circular disposition of the secondary loops around the primary circuits. We can note that no cost exercise was provided during the SFR Smart project, but all the simplification that gives improvement for the safety, give also improvement in terms of cost on the cost of the reactor. Next slide, please. This slide is for the status of all the passive systems we have seen together during the presentation and all the intrinsic safety of the reactor. We have the passive control rods to stop the plant in the physical parameter only on physical parameters and without any order of the control command. We have a low void effect in the core that helps to cope with the severe transient. A lot of calculations were made on the severe transient as you love by other groups and show that we have a very good response of the core. We have passive decay removal by the DHS2 and DHS1, 12 independent loops that operate in natural convection, using only air always available. We have seen the thermal pumps, totally passive to increase the flow rate for the natural convection. And the result of that is you have always a long delay before necessity of operator reaction, even in case of simultaneous loss of water and electricity supply, as in Fukushima. And with an accident at Fukushima, on the CFR Smart, we have almost nothing to do. We have only to open the traps to install the natural convection. Now we have the status of the mitigation situation. Due to the core design with a void effect very low, the probability of severe accident is reduced, and in case of severe accident, the energy release is lower. Nevertheless, we have made a very robust design, proposed a very robust design for severe accident mitigation. We have the core catcher that is designed for the whole core meltdown. We have the mitigation device inside the core, the corium discharge tubes, to channel the molten fuel to the core catcher. We have the impossibility of recriticality of the corium inside the core catcher. We have the coolability of the core catcher by natural convection sodium that was tested by tests in KIT, Germany. We have the reactor pit that should accept sodium leakage, and with a massive metallic roof that should form a solid containment system. There is no primary sodium ejection, even in case of severe accident. The corium long-term cooling should be managed by the different cooling measures, and we have no problem for long-term cooling of the corium. The use of the DHS1 circuit can be used as supplement to continue the reactor block cooling, even if we lose all the other systems. These systems are protected in case of accident, a severe accident, because they are out of primary vessel, and the temperature of the pit concrete remains easily under 70 degrees in all the case, and even if all the circuits are lost. So we have a very good status for mitigation situation. What research development we need to demonstrate all these improvements, but it's a relatively low. It's relatively low research and development. We need an industrial confirmation of the proposed organization for the reactor pit. Though we propose some things that are already be made for the open fast reactor, but the industrial should propose the organization of the building of the reactor pit. We need also an industrial validation of the manufacturing method of the FR type 6 slab. The slab should be with weld of 80 centimeters, and we have to, the industry has to propose some way to make the fabrication of the slab. We have to qualify low expansion material and large diameter bellows for the secondary circuit, but that is not a big problem because it has already been made in the past. And if we want to add the thermal pump, that is not necessary. We can use, we can work without this pump, but it's better with the thermal pumps. If you can use it, we need to make a test of the thermal pump because the calculation have shown that it was correct, but we need to make some tests to demonstrate, to validate the material. Voilà. So we have a very low research and development to do to validate all the options of the reactor. Following slide, please. A point important is the general application to SMR. In the SFR Smart, we have a big power of 1,500 electrical megawatts. It's a very big reactor. Nobody will directly build the sodium fast reactor today with this type of very big power. So the first step with little sodium reactor will be necessary. And we have verified that all the SFR Smart improvements can also be used for a little more reactor with a little power. And more, if we go with reactor with, for example, 200 or 300 electrical megawatt, we can bring some further simplification because the DHS system become more and more efficient. this case. And at the end, you can suppress one of the DRHRS systems. So it's possible to apply all the conclusion of the CFR-Smart to the little sodium fast reactor project. Thanks. Next slide, please. So we have the conclusion. So as I already said, all the drawings have been made on the plant and are available. They are in CAD, and we can make all the design and all the calculation. It's drawings today available. We have made a special publication in NERSC papers for all the first calculations were provided for the first assessment, and all these calculations are available in the NERSC paper, so in a lot of publications, and also, sure, in the European final report. On this basis, a startup was created for further design of sodium fast reactor using these improvements. This startup is based in Switzerland. And the last point, a detailed presentation of the project smart results will be available in the forthcoming Elsevier book I'm writing today. The title of the book is Fast Reactor, a Solution to Avoid Global Warming. And the chapter 5 on this book explains in 50 pages all the improvement of the CFR-Smart design. It's a conclusion. Thank you very much for to missing some 1 hour, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. We have some questions that have come in, but if you have questions, please do type them into the question pane now. And while those last questions are coming in, we'll take a quick look at the upcoming webinar presentations that we have scheduled in February, AI in support of the NE sector, and in March, scale effects and thermal hydraulics, the application to the French SFR. Excuse me. In April, we have a special webinar event. It's a panel discussion with members of the GIF, IAEA, a joint webinar presentation on the role of nuclear energy in reducing CO2 emissions.
Okay.
Give me just 1 second, please. Okay, Patricia and Joel, I've elevated both of you so that you should be able to read the questions as well. Sometimes it's easier to see them. There are several. The first, if I just start at the top, in light of Astrid work stoppage, has France abandoned the SFR technology?
I don't see the question on the...
Open the, there should be a...
I see your questions. What is inside the gap between pit and vessel? Okay? That is the first question I see. So the gap between there is a gap between the liner and the vessel. And in the gap, there is the oil system to cool the liner. And between the liner and the external concrete, there is insulation and also this alumine concrete that this is a concrete that doesn't react with the sodium.
Thank you.
Even another, what is the curing point for the magnets? It's a good question, but I don't have in mind the response. The magnets are permanent magnets, and at the temperature of operation of the circuit, there is no problem to find this type of magnets that have that can work at 400 degrees.
There should be a scroll bar too that would allow you to go to the top.
I see another question. Please add several words about coefficients of reactivity. What type of fuel is planned to be used? So the fuel planned to be used is the classical fuel of sodium fast reactor. It means about 20% of plutonium and 80% of depleted uranium. And I don't have in mind the coefficient of reactivity of the plant, but the design of the core was mainly using the design of Astrid core. And so I cannot give a more precise response of the reactivity values of the core. I should read the papers that are, I should send you the papers that are dedicated. In the ASM, is a nurse publication, you will find papers that explain all that on the, dedicated to the core of the reactor. I have no other questions arriving. No, say yes. You know if any says of if anything says incorporation some of the lessons learned. Yes, I know that some. I know that the improvements explained in OCFR Smart are used in several projects. They are used in projects of MSR in France, and I know that in US also some dispositions are studied in the projects that are already studied. And we have seen that in BN 1200, there are a lot of dispositions that are the same than OCFR Smart. So I think we are not alone with these improvements. And I don't see other questions.
Let me help you just a minute, please. So if you click in your control panel, there's an X that'll close out the whole dialog, and to the left of it is like a unlock your pane from the control panel, and that'll pop it out into a separate screen, and then you should have access. You can drag the sides and make it larger and use the scroll bar. Otherwise, the pane is so small that you can't see the questions.
Here I see another question of natrium. On natrium, design proposed on the TerraPower natrium. Yes, there is natrium some disposition that are the same that the OCFR Smart, but I think that it would be interesting for the natrium project to analyze in a better way to analyze the OCFR Smart proposition, because a lot of things are applicable for their project. And I think that they should improve the project by using some of the disposition proposed.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see other question, but perhaps it's very little. I think it's all for the questions.
Up near the top, there are several about the core catcher. How is the corium and the core catcher cooled?
Yes, so the corium arrives in the core catcher, and we have seen that we have had to disperse the corium inside the core catcher to avoid that it remains at the same place. And after there is a cooling by natural convection, the sodium can arrive through the chimneys and can assure the cooling of the corium. And to demonstrate that, a test was made in Germany, in KIT. A test was made on the thermal hydraulic of the natural convection around the core catcher. And so, if we have a big accident, the corium inside the core catcher, the operator has nothing to do. The circulation of sodium inside the reactor allows to maintain the corium and to maintain the integrity of the core catcher. You remember the core catcher is in molybdenum. Then the melting point of molybdenum is above 2000 degrees, and the compatibility of molybdenum with corium is good. There is no ablation by corium, and so the corium can remain inside this molybdenum structure during a long time. And with the cooling by natural convection, the operator has only to assure the evacuation of the decayed removal. That is easy with the systems that are out of the that are in natural convection and out of the plant, out of the main vessel.
Thank you. Can you take a minute to describe the freeze protection in the system ESFR Smart, if it has one?
Sorry, take a minute, yes, for what?
The freeze protection system, if ESFR Smart has one? A freeze protection system?
Protection system for what? For
freeze? I suppose they mean freezing temperatures?
It is for the control rods. You mean for control rods? Yes. Yeah, there is two possibilities for the passive control rods. One is with the temperature. For example, we take at 600 degrees the control rod with FAL without any order. The other is on the flow rate. We cannot on the reactor, Russian reactor BN800, there are control rods that falls automatically when the flow rates decrease, because it is the flow rate that maintain the control rods in a good position, and when the flow rate decrease, they fall, and the reactor is stopped. So there are two possibilities for the passive control rods. The shot has not been really made for CFR Smart. The two possibilities are operating. One is operating on BN800, and the solution with high temperature is a solution tested by Japan and France together for Astrid.
Thank you. In DHRS1, would there be a chance of sodium solidification in the tubes to the air heat exchangers?
What is in the tube of heat exchanger? The risk of I don't understand well the questions.
Yeah, it reads in DHRS1, would there be a chance of sodium solidification in the tubes to the air heat exchange?
For sodium solidification, yes, it's the main problem of the natural convection inside the DHRS1 is to avoid the solidification of sodium. And for that, it's very easy. There is measurement of temperature at the outlet of the circulation outlet of the sodium heat exchanger, sodium air exchanger. At the outlet, we measure the temperature, and if the temperature is lower than 140 or 50 degrees. In this case, the traps will shut down directly. It's automatically the shutdown of the traps, and so there is no more circulation of air, and so there is no more risk of solidification. So it's something we have to survey when we start. But there is a permanent flow rate in the system due to the 20 millibar of pressure drop inside the heat exchanger. And so due to this pressure drop, there is a permanent circulation of sodium inside the DHRS1 during the operation of the plant. And so that avoid any solidification of the sodium because it's permanently in circulation. And the day we will have to use it, probably never. We have never to use it. But if one day you have to use it, you have only to open the traps, and the natural convection will begin. And you have the verification of the temperature at the outlet of the exchanger is above 140 degrees. That you have no risk of solidification.
Thank you. Mr. Guidez, thanks for the interesting presentation. How much the mass flow chart of natural convection of DHRS can be increased using a thermal pump rather than a standard configuration without any pump? 10 to 20% or even more?
The thermal pumps we have made, but we have no the time and the money to make the test of the thermal pumps. We made only calculations, and we arrive to a pressure of 20 millibar. This pressure is almost the same pressure that the pressure obtained by the natural convection. Though it increased by a factor 2 the pressure drop, and though it increased the flow rate, is not totally necessary. Without thermal pumps, it's operates. There is no problem. But with thermal pumps, it's a little better. It's not a very expensive concept, and it's a little better with thermal pumps. It's about 20 millibar more in the circuits.
Thank you. What are the materials of the discharge tubes?
The discharge tube, that is something new that was proposed in the ASTRID project, in fact. And the discharge tubes are filled with sodium. You can have inside also, if you want, hafnium. And so, if one day the corium arrives in these tubes, it will fall in the tubes. It will take the hafnium with him, and he will arrive with inside above the core catcher. And those discharge tubes in the operation of the plant are without effect. There are tubes filled in sodium and without activity, I would say.
Thank you.
There are 12 tubes that are inside the core in the different place.
Thank you. I'm going to skip down to the one that says, what are the highest pressures inside the core vessel and what pressures are the salts operating at?
The pressure inside the core of the reactor? Yes. I don't have in mind the real value because I have an order of value, but I don't have the exact value in mind. But all the papers I explained in the presentation, if you want to know more, you have to read the paper with all the calculations are explained with the final results and final value. I think it's better to read in this case this paper to have the good values in mind.
Thank you. Are the cold traps accessible for maintenance?
At the core, sorry?
Cold traps, are they accessible for maintenance?
Yes, the cold traps are in Superphénix. The cold traps were inside the primary vessel, and so we took the same disposition. We have the cold traps inside the primary vessel because with this disposition we avoid to have primary sodium circulating out of the primary vessel. You know that in terms of safety, we have to demonstrate that even in case of severe accident, we don't have any radioactive release around the plant. And so the radioactive release can arrive only with the primary sodium. And with the cold traps inside the primary vessel, we avoid any leakage, any risk of leakage of primary sodium. And the operation of the cold traps was very good.
Thank you. Is the core catcher designed to recover the fuel and return it to operation?
The core catcher design has been validated for the natural convection around him. I think at the place we chose for the core catcher, it is not very costly in terms of geometry, because there is a place under the core and under strong back, the place was available. And so it's not expensive because it's inside the place that was available. In fact, it's less expensive than if the core catcher was out of the vessel, and it's better efficiency also because we are on sodium and it's easy to manage the decayed removal.
Thank you. Are there any safety concerns regarding the third loop water sodium contact?
In a third loop, rather than sodium contact.
Yeah, it just reads, if there are any safety concerns regarding the third loop, water sodium contact.
What do you mean by third loop?
Tobias, if you would like to add to your question, that would be helpful. In the meantime, what is the startup that you talked about? Can you add more to the discussion on startup?
Startup. Sorry, I don't understand the question. So startup.
It's down near it's one of the very last questions to have come in by Pascal Terrason. What is the startup you talked about?
There was a question, what is the material of discharge tube? The material of discharge tube is metallic, is 316 steel. What the plain life of the reactor and the exchanger is the same time life as the water reactor. It's exactly the same time. Alors, in a core capture design, operation, our reactivity design, il regarde sous load, following, demand. I don't understand the question in this case. What is the startup you talk about? I don't understand the question. What is the startup? You talk about startup of the plant? I don't understand the question of the startup. What is the startup you talk about? No, I don't understand the question. I don't remember that I spoke of a startup of the plant. Sorry, I don't
That's okay, thank you. Why is hafnium selected as the absorber to avoid recriticality in the core catcher? How much hafnium would need to be used? You talk about that?
Sorry. Alors, on this basis, a startup was created for further design. Okay. I understand. Yes, you can understand. It was in Switzerland, the responsible of the Server Smart project has created a startup to be able to respond to design of sodium fast reactor in various power. I don't know more on this startup because it's just beginning to operate. How responsive is the reactor to demand from the grid? Can I load follow and with what reaction times? That is the reaction times of a reactor, sodium fast reactor is relatively not so quick because you need to manage the difference of temperature between the vessel that follow quickly the temperature of sodium and the upper part of the reactor that follow the temperature with a long time of delay. And though you have a mechanical constraint in the junction between the vessel and sodium and the vessel welded on the roof, there is mechanical constraint in this place if you change the temperature of sodium too quickly. So you need to manage to maintain you cannot change too quickly the temperature of the primary sodium. And so we need one or several hours before to change drastically the power. After it depends if you want only to manage a variation of power, for example, of 10%. In this case, you can manage that with the secondary loops and without moving the primary temperature.
Thank you. I think in regards to people's time and respect for the amount of time, we should take maybe one more question.
Yeah, but after I think there is a lot of screenshots where people have to read the nurse publication that will arrive in this year, or have to read the publication that were made. They will find a lot of explanations, a lot of values that I can give in the short time.
Thank you.
How much hafnium should be used to avoid recruitality? I will say only enough. Enough. We don't make the calculation, but you see that it's easy to have a lot of hafnium in the lower part of the kits because the lower part are not inside not inside the core, and so they don't interact with the neutronic of the reactor. And if one day there is corium that arrives in the kit tubes, they will find this hafnium without difficulties. Another thing is also that you can find in industry molybdenum with hafnium. Molybdenum with hafnium is sold, and you can buy molybdenum hafnium. It exists also. That is a further work to be done when you have the project.
Thank you. How responsive is the reactor to demand from a grid? Can it load follow, and what reaction times would it have?
The reaction times is not so quick. If we have to change only some percent of the grid, you can manage until 10 or 20%. You can manage with the secondary loop. You change the speed of the secondary loop, and you maintain the same temperature inside the primary vessel. And after, if you have to change the temperature in the primary vessel, you need to have more time. I will say 1 day. If you, for example, you go from 0 to 100%, in this case, you have to 2 or 3 days before coming from 0 to 100%. But if you have to follow the grid directly with only 10 or 20% of fluctuations, you can do it with the secondary loops directly.
Thank you again, Joel, for sharing with us your expertise, and thanks everyone who stayed on. We've managed to cover almost 2 hours. We did not get to all of the questions. We'll see if we can perhaps.
I see a question of the reaction with water and sodium. People are afraid of the reaction with water and ask if the electricity is made with water. Yes, the electricity is made with classical turbine with water, and there is no problem with the sodium because the modular steam generator allow a quick detection of the water sodium reaction, and quick detection is easy to manage and easy to repair. And for example, I was the chief of a Phoenix reactor, and I have seen 5 sodium water reaction, and it was without any problems and any difficulty. It's very easy to manage with modular steam generator. So the response is yes, it's classical water turbine.
Thank you. Patricia, do you have any final words?
Yes, thank you. I'm almost ready to bring my daughter to school. I wanted to thank you, Joël. Merci beaucoup. It was a very, very nice presentation, and as always, very good interaction with the audience. So thank you, Joël. I hope to see you sometimes in a conference once the pandemic is over. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, Bertrand, again. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Oui, merci. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.